Welcome to Coffee and Guitar Talk. It's early this morning because I am going to Blade Show in Atlanta today. So I'm very excited. This is one of my favorite days of the year is Blade Show in Atlanta. So I was also doing some reading and watching a couple of videos, some FAQs. I was watching some knife content. I was watching some watch content, and then some stuff came up, and it made me think about how this applies to the guitar industry. There's a lot of, when we talk about, well, let's just say this. Everybody talks about value, right? We always talk about value. And I've decided to sort of pull out value from a lot of my reviews and stuff. Is this thing worth it? Because everybody, this guitar is a better value than that guitar. This guitar is overpriced. This guitar is just as good as that guitar. This one's not worth the money. But the problem is that value is super objective, because a value of a thing is a reflection of your values, of my values. And we all have different backgrounds. We all have different paradigms for what our values are. And oftentimes, how we value a guitar is reflected in other areas of our life because it's just part of our overall values as a person, right? And what we have and what those things that are important to us. And I don't get to decide that for you. So for me to say, this reactor amp is worth the money is kind of inaccurate, really, because it might not be, because a lot of things. So this to me is, first of all, we're going to break this down and be really rational about this, okay? Even though this is an irrational subject, because nobody needs a guitar, okay? And usually I say, well, there's the person there that is using it for emotional, whatever, the PTSD, etc. No, nobody needs a guitar, right? Nobody. It's not food, it's not clothing, and it's not shelter. It is a luxury item. It is man jewelry. It is or woman jewelry. It is a toy. We play guitar. This is for fun. Okay. We don't need a Strat. We don't need a Tele. We don't need a PRS. We don't need a Gibson. We don't need a Harley Benton. We don't need a custom shop anything. We don't need any of those things. These are wants. Guitars are wants. End of story. Well, I do it for a living. You chose to do that because you wanted to do something more fun than dig ditches. You don't need to do it. Okay? So it is a luxury good. End of story. If we don't need them, then that means, and this is true of human psychology, when you are purchasing a need that a want, that every purchase starts with emotion. Okay? And you're going to say, well, yeah, but I'm educated and I'm making a rational decision based on this. Well, okay, yes. Every custom shop Fender guy starts out with a list of things he wants and doesn't want. And I've done all my research and I've spent a bunch of time in forums. The Harley Benton guy's done that. The used guitar guy has done that. Right? The PRS guy has done that because reasons. We all have reasons, and this is not emotional. I am statistics and specs and value and price and parts of what it's made of, and etc. Right? Because then we go ahead and we justify all of these reasons for the thing that we're trying to justify to ourselves, really. But the bottom line is those are all emotional decisions. All of them. They're all emotional decisions. The emotion comes first. The reasons come later, right? The spreadsheet comes later. The spec sheet comes later. And we create a personal identity around our spec sheet, right? And that is because we get emotional satisfaction from that. We get emotional satisfaction from our spec sheet, from our spreadsheet, from all of the research that we've done. So it is still, everything is still emotional. Um, and then there's the opposite of that. It's not actually the opposite. It's the same for everybody. There's, well, but I'm trying to find the best value. So this is not an emotional decision. This is, I only have this much money and I'm trying to make this decision, and I want the best value for money. And this guitar is 95% as good as this one, and it's a third of the money. Even though it's made in China, it's totally fine. I don't care. There's just no way I'm buying a Gibson Les Paul because this one is 95% of that for a third of the money. Okay. But what if the product itself isn't what you're actually buying in that situation? You're still buying a feeling. You beat the system. You outsmarted the marketing, right? You're smarter than the marketing. You didn't get fooled by the name. You're smarter than me because I have a custom shop Gibson, and you outsmarted me by buying something cheaper than me, right? The emotional reward of that while you sit in your mom's basement or wherever you are, that's the victory. That's the thing. The guitar almost doesn't matter at that point. It's like you just put yourself in a situation to win. And so therefore you feel like you won at nothing, but you feel like you won. So therefore you feel good, which is what happens. That's the just as good as guy. And then you have a Facebook group with a bunch of other just as good as guys, and you can now feel good together as a group. And don't get me wrong, there's the Gibson group that does that. There's the PRS group that does that. There's the Fender Stratocaster group that does that. And they're all telling themselves that they bought the best guitar too. It's just part of all of us making this emotional decision. Proving that this is an emotional decision, no matter the budget. It doesn't matter if it's $300 or if it's $30,000. It doesn't matter. The premium buyer is doing exactly the same thing that the just as good as guy is doing, right? He cares about pride of ownership. He cares about resale value. He cares about the craftsmanship, heritage of the brand. Whether there are definable characteristics about a guitar that make it worth more money or not, it doesn't really matter, because collectability, inspiration to play, craftsmanship, even the feel of a guitar, like, oh, this is really nice, is an emotion, right? It's an emotional thing. It's not the difference between emotion and logic. It's the difference between which emotions matter to you. If winning on the price side matters, or if the feeling of this, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, matters to you. The bottom line is this: value is just your values. We talked about this earlier. Worth it to who? Worth it to you. Me? Somebody else? Trying to convince somebody else that it's worth it? It's worth it to you. It's worth it to you. If somebody values American manufacturing, attention to detail on fret ends, supporting a specific company, I have my favorites, you have your favorites, or if somebody values the lowest cost no matter what, right? The maximum features on the spreadsheet for the lowest amount of cost, then the answer is going to be different. What are your values? They're different. You just value different things. Neither person is wrong in this, because we all come from different backgrounds and we all come from different places. We all value different things, and neither of us is wrong. The only problem is when you try to tell me what I should value, or vice versa. I try to tell you what you should value. That's the only problem. We hear the term gatekeeping, and usually that is a pejorative on people that have more money trying to stop people with no money from having what they have. But that's not really what it is. What it really is someone trying to tell somebody what they should value. That's all gatekeeping really is. You're dumb for paying more than me. You're gatekeeping too. You're cheap for buying that. Gatekeeping. Both statements are the same. You're assuming that your values should apply to somebody else. This is the negativity that ruins the guitar market. This is the negativity that ruins the guitar market. If we all stopped doing that and really went back to the emotions of creating, then the world would be a better place. It really, really would. I hope this is a self-examination for everybody. I know it is for me. Like, it's making me want to change how I present videos, thinking about this. I've given this a lot of thought, and I feel it's really, really important. The other thing is that people will say, that, well, I'm immune to the marketing because I'm trying to get the best value, right? I'm immune to the marketing. Usually everybody thinks they're immune to the marketing, but they're not. There's the immune to the marketing crowd. They're not. They're simply responding to a different marketing message than another person. If I say I saw a Gibson and I wanted it and I bought it, or I saw a PRS and I wanted it and I bought it, I'm a victim of marketing. If you buy a cheaper guitar that looks the same but isn't, you are not a victim of marketing. If you bought a Rolex, somebody will say you're a victim of the brand, you're a victim of the marketing. And I bought, this is a Squale, so this is a Swiss diver that is about the 10th of the price of a Rolex Submariner, and I really, really like this watch. I'm not a victim of marketing. I found, an Italian company that has a Swiss-made watch, complicated, I know, for a 10th of the price, et cetera, blah, 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 whatever. Or maybe not quite a 10th, but anyway. And it's just as good, and it kind of looks the same. No. That's not why I bought this, by the way. I still want a Submariner. I could say that, like, I'm not a victim of the marketing, blah, 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 blah. They're both emotions. They're both, you're trying to win. You're trying to be smarter than the other guy. You're trying to sound more intelligent. You're trying to be the guy with the nice thing versus the guy with the cheap thing. Like it's a competition, when really it isn't, because that person might not value the thing that you have. Since values are different, why is it a competition? It's not. I don't have a custom shop Les Paul to compete with someone. That makes no sense. Because first of all, I don't know you. I have no reason to compete with you because you might not feel it's a competition. So why would I use that as a competition piece? Doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. You buy these things for yourself. When we bring up like these Chinese brands that kind of, I don't want to say create this problem, but they do contribute to the value proposition argument, because you can get like a Chinese guitar or an Indonesian guitar or whatever for a lot cheaper, and it looks kind of the same. But the bottom line is the world is fluid. It has always been, I will tell you, I've done manufacturing in China before. I've probably told the story many times. I could tell it again, not here, but I could tell it in some sort of format, maybe on Patreon. I got ripped off like $40,000. I don't remember. It was a lot. I've done manufacturing in China, and here's what I'll tell you. I ended up manufacturing all of my dirt bike products in the United States. And here's why. Because the differential in cost between China and the United States is variable based on the type of product that it is, based on the type of labor that it is, and based on the volume. Okay. So you could make a part in the United States for a little bit more than in China, or you can make a part in the United States for a lot more than in China, depending on what it is. It's not linear. And those things are always moving around all the time. The reason I'm bringing this up is people will just say, I'm just going to go somewhere else. It doesn't matter what country it's made of. It doesn't matter what country it's made of. People either hate the United States, and I understand, we don't need to get into politics, or they are just justifying the fact that they want a Chinese guitar because they want a cheaper one, which is totally cool. I get it. But that's not always going to be the case. That gap is going to be a mush. It's going to close and open and close and open and close and open. So you can't always rely on that. And I think that gap is going to continually close. And it's not going to be a thing anymore. So it doesn't really matter, actually. That is probably the least important point of this whole conversation. The question is this. This is the real important thing. Okay? And you guys might have already clicked off, but if you're here still, this is the real question. I'm going to make a statement first, and then I'm going to ask the question. You are not buying a thing. Ever. You are buying an experience. The thing that you're buying, doesn't matter what it is, but in this case, it's a guitar. You are buying an experience. The thing you use to create the experience, and it creates an experience. When you open up the case and you smell a Gibson for the first time, it's freaking awesome. When you open up a Martin, when you order a guitar from Temu and it comes in that yellow tape styrofoam stuff and it gets all over your living room, you are buying an experience, not a thing. So, what experience are you trying to buy? What experience are you buying? Are you buying the bargain hunter experience? Are you buying the collector experience? Are you buying the craftsman experience? Are you buying the modder experience? Are you buying the working musician experience? Are you buying nostalgia? What are you buying? What experience, when you buy a guitar, are you buying? And it might not always be the same. I have different guitars that I buy for different reasons. We all do. So it might not be the same for each guitar. So don't pigeonhole yourself into I'm a this kind of guy, so I always need to have this kind of guitar, because we're not like that. We're very fluid and we move and our opinions move. The only difference is this: the emotions and the experience that you're paying for. Do you want the experience of styrofoam all over your living room with the yellow tape? Or do you want the smell of a Gibson? It depends. You might want something different than me, and it's totally fine. Nobody gets to tell you what experience you're trying to buy, because it's yours.